Okay, I'd say since I can't get it right today, I'll take a little bit more of a casual approach because I have a hard time talking today. But I think that will actually give you more helpful information that you might expect. But the Nokia 8, I've used it for exactly 8 days now, and I'm pretty sure I know all there is to know about this phone. But I'm also gonna make damn sure to take as much time as I think is necessary to cover this phone as good as possible. And if you ask yourself why, the answer is really simple, because it totally deserves just that. Okay, so let's get into the first thing, design and build. I really love the build because nothing creaks at all. It feels very solid, is crafted pretty much without any imperfections. The buttons, nice click, nice tactile feedback. Here, for example, front, flat, but with a nice smooth transition towards the curved back. And this curved back actually makes the phone feel thinner, but also actually more narrow. That is great. But the in-hand feel is also very good because of this finish. Because there is a glossy version and this matte version. This will attract way less fingerprints and maybe give you a little bit more of a more consistent grippy experience. Because in most cases it was quite grippy. With colder, drier hands it was a little bit slippery. In my opinion, I think the glossy version would provide me a little bit more grip, but it would also look way more nasty since it attracts way more fingerprints. So that's something you have to decide on your own. But one thing that I really like about this phone is the actual size. Because it is a 5.3 inch and maybe not the smallest one. So because yes, the bezels could be a little bit smaller, I think. So the overall phone could be a little bit more compact. But I think the 5.3 inch form factor is pretty much the perfect sweet spot. Because okay, I gotta admit, it is significantly bigger than the 5.15 inch screen phone, the Mi 6, as you can see here in all dimensions. But it also feels significantly bigger in terms of the display size. And therefore I gotta say this phone, just because it's kind of somewhere in between 5 inches and 5.5 inches, but it feels noticeably smaller than a 5.5 incher, but it gives you a little bit of a bigger screen. And therefore, I just think this is maybe the perfect compromise, because still compact enough in hand, but it gives you a bigger screen real estate, or at least it looks like it. And that's why I like it so much. And the in-hand feel is just so amazing because it feels so premium, so very well done. About those other things though, as you can see here, of course we have all the LEDs and all that kind of things with the dual cam. Here the microphone, headphone jack, SD card and SIM card tray. On the bottom USB Type-C, speaker and the microphone. The buttons are placed a little bit higher than the average phone, but still okay. The one thing that I don't get is the why the buttons are, if you can maybe see that, curved on the back of this curve. And this is just something I don't get, because so many times it feels like you would press against the frame or kinda get the button stuck while pressing. So I don't think this is the perfect solution, especially for the power button. I don't mind it so much for the volume rocker, but on the power button you really need some time getting used to it, and it took me actually quite a few days. What you won't unfortunately see here is a notification LED, quite a bummer for a lot of people, but you get capacitive buttons. I would have really wished for an option to switch those out though, but it is what it is. The fingerprint reader, maybe a little bit weird in terms of shape, because quite low, but therefore quite wide. I gotta say it works, absolutely reliable, but as you can also see, quite delayed. And a little bit actually annoying because it vibrates also every time, which is just something I'm not the biggest fan of. But as you can see here, once the screen is on, it is quite fast. But this overall process with the screen turning on is a little bit slower, definitely below average, so not the very biggest fan of that. But other than that, I would say, yeah, design top, build top, absolutely. So let's move on and talk about the display. Unfortunately, you can't change anything. Yes, we have double tap to wake, which is quite nice, but no sort of calibration options, which though is absolutely not a problem, because I gotta say this is a top-notch display. Brightness of about 590 lux, maybe not the very best one, but still totally easily good enough. It comes with amazing colors, so neutral, but not kind of dull and something like that. They absolutely have a natural appeal, also still quite vibrant enough, and the IPS display is super sharp with the 1440p resolution. White point is set pretty much just as I would like it to, and the actual IPS glow is less than on many IPS phones, so absolutely high quality, top-notch display. I absolutely love it. Such an enjoyable display, really great, and not over the top calibrated, which is super nice. Okay, what about the speaker? No, the placement of the speaker is not great. It's bottom firing, but that's the case on most phones. But the speaker itself at least is actually quite loud, and it sounds good. Not too thin, not too warm or something like that, so a good balance. totally gets the job done. It's not anything special, but it's at least loud and it sounds good. I can't really complain about it. Now the headphone jack, I would say, is okay. It should be good enough for most people. I learned just recently that I like to listen to music extremely loud, which then wouldn't satisfy me quite enough, but for most people it will be just fine. So, performance. Let's end all apps real quick and check the app launch times. And as you can see, these are definitely fast. It is a snappy feeling phone without any issues. There are some phones, like maybe Sony phones, that feel even more so snappy, but I cannot complain at all. Especially here about this top-notch flagship performance, because once we start to scroll, you will see how buttery smooth this is. And this is pretty much almost even on a AMOLED level. And that's why I just think this high-quality display definitely did help, because amazing browsing performance, everything is super smooth. And also, as you can see here, once loaded, super nice, consistent without pretty much any lag. If you see some lag, it's usually the app caching or anything else, but not really the performance of this phone, because as you can see here, super nice and smooth. Completely jittery free. There is no smaller micro lag or anything. Absolutely top notch. I would say this is easily, I would say, a top 5 performer on a level of an Sony Xperia X at premium, or maybe on a HTC U11 without any issues. Totally consistent, top performance. Also multitasking, absolutely great. Since it has stock Android, as you can see here, absolutely super optimized. Gaming performance as well, maybe not quite on the very best level. Here I noticed some smaller little frame drops here and there, but usually the performance is on a very high level. Nice, way over moderate frame rates and all that. You can play all games without any problems. After all, it is the Snapdragon 845, but the Snapdragon 845 is also a chip that is quite efficient. Yes, the phone gets a little bit warmer, but definitely absolutely in line with anything else. So I'm totally happy to say that this is also a great phone for gaming. Now about the battery. A full charge takes almost 2 hours, which is a little bit long for some phones out there, but still absolutely fine in my opinion. 11% for off YouTube is just a little bit above average, which is 12% usually. But the battery life, especially due to the very good standby drain, which is amongst the very best ones, is top. Because what I got on Wi-Fi was about 7.5, maybe even 8 hours of screen on time. But even on mobile data, I got about 5.5 to maybe sometimes 6. So I would say, let's say our average about 5.5. And that is on a level of a OnePlus 5, maybe a little bit better than the LG G6. So absolutely top here as well. Now, software, not really too much to say here, because as you can see here, we have pretty much stock Android launcher. We get quick settings, pretty much stock Android look as well. You can of course rearrange those. With the system tuner you can get a battery percentage, but you won't really get much extra options, because what we get is glance, which is actually a feature I don't really like a lot, because this is way weaker than we get with adaptive display, because as you can see here, it just shows the phones, the missed ones, missed emails and messages, that's it. You won't get any extra notifications. And especially one issue that I didn't like a lot is if you charge the phone, this glance screen doesn't turn off, which is especially annoying at night. So this is a weaker option than we get actually by default from stock Android. The rest though, notification, sounds, storage, as you can see, battery, tap to pay. We have some gestures, jump to the camera, and also some motion thing, but not really a whole lot. The good thing is Android will come quite quick in terms of updates, because Oreo is already pretty much already there. I've seen already first people getting it in some ways, not officially maybe, but you will get pretty much the updates the first. You will get them quite for a long time. Stock Android for everyone who likes it. I think it's personally a little bit too limited in terms of features, but if you want just a great experience with the greatest updates, clean software, super optimized, you will totally get that. Now what about the camera? Front-facing cam, especially great due to having autofocus, but you will also need to give it a time, because if you take your pictures too fast, you will notice that it's quite often out of focus, because the autofocus is there, which is top, but it is a little bit flaky and a little bit slow. So indoors you can get absolutely great pictures, but due to the autofocus I will just give it a potentially great. As you can see here, top pictures, super nice, super sharp, super detailed, as you can see here. So this is one of the very best cameras in general if you give it the time with the autofocus. And the video just says the same. As you can see, super sharp, because even here we get 4K video, which is I think pretty much the first phone that actually allows us this. What I've noticed though, that's a general thing of the camera, it tends to underexpose a little bit, and it also tends to oversaturate colors a little bit, but the clarity, the sharpness, and the quality is just absolutely top, and also indoors, as you can see here. Yes, maybe not properly stabilized, because sometimes you get a little bit of shaky footage, but you get great saturated video, top focus and so on. So that also as well potentially great, because the autofocus isn't always on par with the rest. Low light, as you can see here, not bad, absolutely not. But I can't really give it more than a good. These days I would expect even more. But yeah, it totally works out just fine. Now let's take a pic outside and see what it gets here. And here I have to say, I'm actually not all that impressed. The problem was though, the weather was quite bad. So I couldn't quite get all the potential out of this cam, which is quite sad to see, because as you can see here, the pics all look a little bit not fully sharp, not 100% in focus. Yes, the focus was a little bit of an issue for sure, because the experience is a little bit slow, I gotta say, about this cam. Autofocus takes quite a long time. The shutter then is fine, and you can get great pictures. But I have a hard time giving it even an almost great, just because, yeah, it's a little bit hard to judge, because I just didn't get the weather that I wanted. As you can see here, the dual cam blur works really nice. As you can see, nice separation from the background here compared to the normal picture, and also here once again. So this works really good once you know what you are doing, and you can actually adjust the amount of blur. HDR though is, I would say, actually a super highlight, because as you can see, this is without HDR, and here with HDR you can actually see how much more details you get in the shadows of the clouds and so on, and here as well. So I definitely like what HDR does. It's maybe not supernatural anymore, but it's definitely looking very satisfying. Now 4K video, yep, about 42 megabits. Absolutely nice, not a whole lot of artifacting, very smooth, also quite sharp, I would say. The autofocus is actually quite smooth, sometimes a little bit abrupt, but here definitely way more reliable. So yeah, I really like that. If we move a little bit forward, as you can see, definitely nice picture. Not really more than a very good. I've seen a few cams already doing better video, but yeah, that's totally fine, I would say. And that's why I would say let's continue with the pros and cons. Starting off with the build, which is absolutely great in terms of design, especially due to the great size, and also in and feel absolutely top notch as well. The fingerprint reader, yes, reliable, but also delayed and slightly annoying. The display though, once again, top notch flagship level, and the speaker is at least loud and good. Headphone jack is okay. Performance though, top 5 flagship level. The battery is great. Software is stock, but in my opinion a little bit limited these days. Front facing cam is potentially great. Same goes also for the video cam. The low light cam is good. Main and video cam also very good. The value, especially considering the great overall package's quality, in my opinion also really good. Now there are a few extra notes. It could be slightly more compact, so the bezel's a little bit smaller and the button placement is a little bit questionable. There is no notification LED, and in my opinion the display implementation of the glance feature is quite lame, because it doesn't even turn off while charging, and it doesn't provide you with all that much information in the first place. The camera generally tends to underexpose and oversaturate, and it is a little bit slow and quite flaky when it comes to the autofocus. I just think the camera needs a little bit more optimization, and that already brings me to the conclusion. This phone, priced at around 579 euros, maybe even down to like 550 euros, still is a top buy. Because if I would compare this maybe to the next best flagship, which I called the most complete phone, for example, this year would be the HTC U11. But it actually comes with quite a few advantages, in my opinion, because it feels noticeably smaller, way more compact, and even more so premium. I just prefer the design. The display is at least on the same level, maybe the sound not so much. Performance though just about as good. Also the battery life, the software is even cleaner, even closer to stock if you like that. The camera not quite on that level, and I just have to say, at least here in Germany, it's a little bit cheaper. And in my opinion, this is actually one of just 3 phones that I would personally consider of buying, which would be, for example, the OnePlus 5, the Xiaomi 6, and now the Nokia 8. So I'm quite picky, but this just fits my needs so well, especially with the great in and feel and the overall, as you have seen, pretty much in all cases, great, if not at least very good qualities. Gives me an easy recommendation, especially since I did not expect such a high quality phone at least in Germany, quite a reasonable price. Usually here you pay still a lot more for a high-end flagship, or you just miss out on a lot of qualities. For example, here with the LG G6, which would be to call out, which is noticeably cheaper, maybe offers the better value, but isn't nearly at that level. And compared to the OnePlus 5, you just get more quality, you just get the better build, you get the better display, and a few other things like, for example, as well. But One thing that I have to call out, even though the front-facing camera is absolutely impressive, I think it needs a little bit more optimization on the main camera, because I think potentially it could be easily great, because the camera can provide sharp pictures and so on. And yes, I didn't have the best lighting conditions. With more light, I guess it would be even better, and I could maybe even give it a grade. But just also because of the slight slow autofocus, with the underexposure and oversaturation, it just isn't quite where it should be, especially with the size branding on the back end coming from Nokia. But this doesn't change the least bit that I absolutely like this phone, and it is a great overall package. Yes, it's maybe not a bezel-less phone anymore these days, and it maybe doesn't have some features like some proper flagship like some call them actually would offer, but I don't see how this is not an amazing, great flagship. I absolutely love it. Great size, especially being quite a nice compromise between a normal sized phone and a bigger phone, because it feels bigger than it actually looks. I mean, the display feels bigger than it is. So yeah, I'm not gonna ramble anymore. I really like it, and yeah, if you like the review, maybe a thumbs up, subscription, and the comments down there below. That was it. Until next time, bye.